I told my son that his father had just died. He paused, then said, "It's Megan's birthday. Can we talk tomorrow?" And that's when it hit me. I didn't just lose my husband that day. I lost my son too. Nathan never came to the funeral. Not a call, not a text, nothing. But 3 weeks later, he got a letter from my lawyer. I didn't say a word. I just let the letter do the talking. Whatever he read, it stopped him cold. I did something that day he'll never forget. Before I tell you the rest, take a second to like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's one life lesson you think everyone needs to hear before it's too late? Gerald died right there at the kitchen table, right in the middle of making me laugh. He was joking, teasing me about buying the wrong kind of coffee creamer again. "If I drop dead from this powdered stuff," he said with a chuckle, tapping his spoon against his mug, "then you'll finally know what real guilt feels like." Then suddenly, his hand twitched. The spoon slipped. His eyes widened like he couldn't breathe. I dropped the butter knife I was holding and ran to him, screaming his name. But he was already gone. His body went limp before I could even grab the phone, before I could ask, "Is this another one of your stupid jokes?" It wasn't. I could hear the 911 operator talking calmly, asking questions, guiding me through CPR, but I already knew. I could tell by the way his head slumped to the side, by how cold his fingers were when I held them. When the paramedics arrived, I just stepped back. They used words like massive, unrecoverable, DNR. I just nodded. I don't even remember hearing them all. The house suddenly felt too loud and too quiet at the same time. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the floor. When they finally covered Gerald's body, when there was nothing left for them to do, I picked up my phone and called our son, Nathan, my only child. It rang 5 times. When he finally answered, I could barely speak. I was shaking, but I got the words out. "Nathan, your dad just collapsed. He's gone." There was silence. Then his voice, flat, distracted. "Oh, Mom, today's Megan's birthday. Can I call you later?" At first, I thought I imagined it. But then he added, "She planned this brunch. We've got people over." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just went quiet. I lowered the phone, my hand moving on its own. And then I hung up. I didn't want to hear another word that might break me even more. The room buzzed in my ears like all the air had been sucked out. I looked over at Gerald's chair, his spot for morning coffee, crossword puzzles, and there he was, still. Sitting in it. I sat next to him. I held his hand. I don't know for how long, maybe an hour. I just sat there, hoping somehow he'd come back. The coroner came and asked if I needed a moment. I said no. What was the point? The moment I needed had already passed. I went upstairs and laid down on our bed. The same sheets from the night before were still there. Gerald's phone was on the nightstand. I picked it up, hoping there might be something. Anything. There was. 1 missed call. 10:42 p.m. He'd tried to call Nathan. No answer. No voicemail. Just silence. Maybe he knew something was wrong. Maybe he felt it. And our son didn't pick up. I pressed the phone to my chest. The weight of 42 years of marriage hit me all at once. Everything we'd built together. A life. A home. Gerald worked so hard to make sure our family never went without. And now, nothing from Nathan. Not even a goodbye. That silence hurt more than any eulogy ever could. The day of the funeral felt like a dream. Like I'd stepped into a world that looked familiar but felt completely wrong. People talked, their mouths moved, but I couldn't hear them. All I could feel was the emptiness where Nathan should have been. I stood at the podium, gripping the sides to keep from falling. People I hadn't seen in years came up and said kind things. He was such a good man. We're so sorry. And all I could think was, my son isn't here. He's not in the pews. not beside me, not even in the parking lot. The night before, I had called again to remind him about the funeral. Megan answered. She told me Nathan was still thinking about it because they had a weekend trip booked, and the cancellation fees were too high this close to the date. And just like that, I realized something I never wanted to believe. My husband was gone, and the son we raised, he was already gone too. I remember just staring at the phone while Megan kept talking. She was going on and on about how her birthday was important too, and how she was trying to stay positive for her own mental health, she said. I didn't say a word. I just hung up. I wasn't about to beg my own son to come to his father's funeral. Not after everything Gerald had done for him. Gerald was the one who stayed up all night with baby Nathan when he had colic. He was the one who spent weekends building entire Lego cities and taught Nathan how to balance a checkbook before he even hit his teens. And Gerald had tried to call Nathan the night before he died, but Nathan never called him back. Of course, people noticed. The whispers started even before the service began. Where's Nathan? Did he miss his flight? Is Megan okay? Like they were the ones we should feel sorry for. Even Gerald's old college friend Frank leaned over and whispered, I thought your boy would be front and center today. I just nodded like I wasn't crumbling inside. But the moment that truly broke me? It came later, in the fellowship hall. I was standing near the coffee urn when one of Gerald's co-workers, Brian, came up to me. He looked a little uneasy and said, I don't mean to pry, but Gerald mentioned something strange last month. He said he was helping Nathan out financially. He seemed really stressed about it. I froze. Gerald never told me anything about that. I thought we didn't have secrets. At least, I believed that. I didn't ask Brian any questions. I just smiled politely, thanked him for coming, and excused myself to the restroom. I sat on the toilet lid, staring at the tile floor until someone knocked and asked if everything was okay. No. Everything was not okay. My son had missed his own father's funeral for a birthday brunch and a weekend trip. And now, I was hearing hints about money problems and secrets Gerald had never shared with me. When I got home that night, the silence was crushing. I poured myself a glass of wine and stared at Gerald's empty chair, trying not to think about how cold and alone I felt. Then I made the mistake of checking my phone. Megan had posted a photo on Instagram, her in a bright pink dress, holding a mimosa. The caption read, Best birthday ever, love my hubby. It had been posted during the funeral, during Gerald's eulogy. I stared at the screen until it blurred. My hands were shaking. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, reaching instinctively for Gerald's hand, like I always used to. But there was nothing there, just an empty space. Around 3 a.m., I got up. I walked over to Gerald's desk and started pulling out everything. Bank statements, insurance papers, old receipts, anything that might explain what Brian had said. Because now it wasn't just grief. It was something colder, something sharp and creeping. It felt like maybe I didn't know my own family as well as I thought I did. And the one person who could have explained everything, he was gone. The next morning, I woke up with a new kind of determination. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It was closer to anger. Rage wrapped in sorrow. I went straight to Gerald's filing cabinet, the one he always kept locked. He used to say I had the spare key, taped to the back of our wedding photo in the closet, like some sweet little gesture of trust. But now it felt more like a test. I found the key. I opened the drawer. Inside were neat folders organized by year and category. Tax returns, retirement plans, bank records. It was so him, like he never expected to die mid-sentence. It didn't take long to find the one that made my heart drop. A slim blue folder labeled Nathan Transfers. I sat down, hands shaking, and opened it. There was a trail, transfer after transfer of money going from Gerald's account to Nathan. $2,000 here, $3,500 there, and one that made my stomach turn cold. $12,000, marked Urgent, Megan Medical. 15 transfers. In just the last year and a half. And I had no idea, no clue. Gerald never told me. We had promised not to keep secrets. We agreed on that the day we opened a joint bank account and picked out a crib for our baby boy. I kept reading, looking for something, anything, to help it all make sense. That's when I found it. A letter, folded and tucked between two Bank A statements, written in Gerald's handwriting on that yellow legal pad he always used. But it wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to Nathan. It began, "Nathan, this is the second time you've told your—" "He wasn't sick, Nathan," I said, keeping my voice flat. "He had a heart attack at the breakfast table, 5 minutes after joking about the coffee creamer." Nathan looked away then, his mouth tight, jaw working like he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the right words, or maybe couldn't find a lie good enough to hold up. I didn't offer him comfort. I didn't offer him forgiveness. I just watched. And in that stillness, in the quiet of that living room where Gerald's chair sat untouched, I saw the boy I'd raised, and the man I didn't recognize. I leaned back in my seat. "Did you need something?" I asked. He blinked, caught off guard. I thought maybe we could talk. I figured you might have questions." I nodded slowly. "I do." He looked up, cautiously hopeful. "How long were you lying to your father?" His face dropped. "Mom? No, don't mom me. I found the folder, Nathan, the transfers, the note. I know everything." His eyes widened for just a second before he covered it with the same stiff, awkward calm he wore at the door. He wanted to help. I didn't ask him for anything he didn't offer. $12,000 labeled Megan Medical doesn't sound like casual help, I said, my voice sharper now. What was that about? He hesitated. She had surgery. Complications. Funny, Gerald never mentioned that to me. And I saw your Instagram post that day. Mimosas, pink dress, best birthday ever. No one looked like they were recovering from surgery. That landed. He flinched, just a little. I stood up then, slowly, and walked to the window. Megan was still sitting in the car, scrolling on her phone like this was just another errand. It told me more than Nathan ever could. You didn't just lie to your father, Nathan, I said without turning around. You let him carry it. You let him cover for you. While he was dying, you were draining him. He stood too, suddenly defensive. It wasn't like that. No? I turned to face him. Then tell me what it was like. Tell me why a man who never hid anything from me had to write a warning letter to his own son and then tuck it away like he already knew it wouldn't matter. We stared at each other for a long time. And that's when I saw it. He didn't have an answer. Not a real one. Your father deserved better, I said quietly. He deserved a goodbye. He deserved respect. But you couldn't even give him a call back. Nathan ran a hand over his face. I messed up, okay? I know that. I do. That's why I came. No. You came because Megan told you to, I said. And because you're worried about what else I might find. He didn't argue. I walked to the door and opened it. He stood there, stunned. That's it? He asked. For now, I said. Come back when you're ready to tell the truth. All of it. Until then, I need time. I need space. And you need to figure out who you are. Because right now, I don't think your father would recognize you either. He lingered for a second, like he wanted to say something that might change it all. But nothing came, so he turned and walked back to the car. Megan didn't even look up when he got in. I closed the door. Then I sat back down at the kitchen table, beside the ghost of Gerald's laughter, his coffee mug still waiting in the sink, and I let the silence wrap around me, not like a weight this time, but like armor. Because I finally understood that love doesn't always mean protecting someone, Sometimes it means refusing to protect them ever again. He looked away and rubbed his forehead, like this whole conversation was too much for him, like I was the one making things worse just because I wouldn't let it slide. I leaned in a little and set it straight. I found the transfers. That's when his whole body tensed up, like I'd just thrown a lit match into a pile of gasoline. What transfers? He shot back, too fast, too loud. He knew, and I didn't sugarcoat it. The ones from Dad's account to yours, Megan's medical bills, your vacation, the rent you couldn't cover. Don't lie to me, Nathan. Not now. And instead of owning up to it, he had the nerve to act offended. Those were loans, Mom. We were just going through a rough patch. Dad offered. That's when I handed him the yellow letter, the one Gerald wrote but never sent. In it, he warned Nathan that if he lied again, the money would stop. Nathan read it quietly, folded it back up like it wasn't proof of who he had turned into, and said, "He didn't mean that." And in that moment, I realized something that hurt more than I expected. I wasn't talking to my son anymore. Not the little boy who used to fall asleep on Gerald's chest during Sunday football, not the teenager who helped build the shed in our backyard. This was a man who had gotten good at justifying his choices, even when they hurt the people who loved him most. I felt a kind of cold, sharp clarity. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern, a choice he kept making, to put himself first, no matter the cost to our family. And now he was here, not because he cared, but because Megan told him to clean up the mess. I stood up, walked to the door, and said, "I'll let you know if I need anything from you." He looked like he wanted to say something, but Megan honked from the driveway, so he just nodded and left. No hug, no, "How are you doing, Mom?" Nothing. I watched him get in the car. Megan gave the house a smug little look, like she thought she'd won something. And all I could think was, you have no idea what's coming. The next morning, I woke up feeling calm in a way that almost scared me. Not peaceful, just certain. I didn't even make coffee. I picked up the phone and called Alan Clean, the lawyer who handled Gerald's business for years, the one who never forgot our birthdays. When I told him I needed to update my will, he didn't ask questions. He just gave me the first open slot. I gathered everything: the bank statements, the folder with Nathan's transfers, Gerald's unsent letter, and even the audio file of Nathan's pathetic half-confession from the day before. And then I added one more thing: a handwritten letter to our granddaughter Ava to be opened on her 18th birthday. Because no matter what happened, that little girl deserves the truth. Not the version Megan will spin, or the silence Nathan will hide behind like it's some kind of dignity. When I walked into Alan's office, he looked at me and said, "This is about more than just estate planning, isn't it?" I nodded and handed him the documents. "Everything goes into a trust," I said. "The house, the money, the stocks, everything. But not for Nathan. Not for Megan. They don't get a cent." He didn't flinch, just pulled out a notepad and started writing. We set it up so Ava would inherit it all when she turned 25, with early access only for school or housing, no luxury cars, no bribes, wrapped in guilt. I also asked Alan to add a clause. If Nathan or Megan ever tried to fight the will, Ava would get everything immediately, and they'd lose even their right to visit her during the trust period. It might sound harsh, but when someone chooses brunch over a funeral, when they pick control over compassion, you stop playing nice. You start protecting what really matters. Ava is the only piece of Gerald I still have left. Alan double-checked everything, added the section for Ava's letter, sealed it in an envelope, and included the transcript from Nathan's visit, proof of the lies, the financial abuse, and the cold way he walked away. Then he looked at me and said, "This is solid, Cora, no loopholes, but it's going to hit him hard." And I just said, "Good, that's the point." We got it all signed and filed that same day. I didn't walk out of that office feeling like I'd won. I walked out feeling like I'd drawn a line, a boundary, And this time, no one was crossing it. Gerald could never quite bring himself to draw that line, but I finally did. And it wasn't about revenge. It was just reality. If Nathan wanted to treat us like walking ATM machines with no limit, then he needed to learn the hard way that this machine had been watching, keeping track, and waiting for the right moment to shut it down. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and reread the letter I'd written to Ava. 6 pages filled with honesty, not anger. I told her who her grandfather really was, what he had done for her father, and how that kindness had been twisted into lies and manipulation. I explained that the money she would inherit someday wasn't just a gift, it was a responsibility. A reminder to always choose love over ease, loyalty over looking good, and bravery over going along with what's easy. Because she's the only one left in this family who still has a chance to do things right. When I sealed that envelope, it didn't feel like I was closing a chapter of grief. It felt like I was ending the silence. That heavy kind of silence that slowly creeps in when the people you love let you down over and over until one day you're standing alone at a funeral and finally realize just how deep the betrayal went. But now, at least, I knew that silence wouldn't be passed on. 4 days after I left Alan's office, the letter landed in Nathan's mailbox. It was sent by certified mail, and at exactly 11:13 a.m., I got the confirmation that it had been delivered. I pictured him standing in his kitchen, flipping through the day's mail, probably not expecting much, until he saw the law firm's logo on the envelope. And I knew the moment he opened it, he didn't call, he didn't text, he didn't email. Not that day, not the next. But Megan did. Not with a phone call, but with a storm of text messages. At first, it was the usual passive-aggressive stuff. Wow. Classy, Cora. Then it turned nasty. You're unbelievable. Do you even care about Ava? I didn't respond, because sometimes silence is the most honest answer you can give. On the 3rd day, the phone rang. It was Nathan, calling from a blocked number. His voice was soft and unsure, like he was trying to sound like the little boy who used to come to me when he broke something and didn't know how to fix it. "Mom, I just got the letter," he said, like I hadn't been sitting in that wait for days. I didn't say anything. I let the silence speak for me. Then he asked, "Is this real?" And I told him, "You tell me." Because there was nothing left to explain. The silence that followed felt like it stretched forever. Then he said, "I didn't know Dad felt that way." That's when something inside me just froze. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just said it like ice. "You didn't know because you never asked, Nathan. You were too busy pretending we didn't matter." Then Megan jumped in on the other line. Her voice was sharp, demanding. "You can't actually disinherit your own son. That's insane." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was just so typical of her. The second the money stopped, the mask came off. I said, "I didn't disinherit him. I protected Ava." She shot back. "From us?" Like she couldn't even imagine that she might be part of the problem. And I answered, from this moment, from this conversation, from this entitlement." Before she could fire back with whatever poison she had lined up next, I hung up. That was the line now. You don't get to ignore us in life and expect to benefit in death. You don't get to walk away from grief and then walk back in for the inheritance. You don't get to disappear during the funeral and then try to rewrite the will. I stayed sitting at the kitchen table after that, right where Gerald's heart gave out. And for the first time since we buried him, I felt something close to peace. Not joy, not closure, but control. Like I had finally done what Gerald couldn't bring himself to do when he still had the chance. Later that night, Nathan sent one last message. It said, "I don't know how we come back from this." And I didn't respond, because now, that choice, that's not mine to make anymore. This legacy, it wasn't mine anymore. It was Ava's. And one day, when she was old enough to truly understand everything, she would decide who deserved a place in her life. That was what I was leaving behind. Not just money, but truth and choice. They showed up on a Sunday afternoon. No call, no warning, just pulled into my driveway like they still had the right. Megan stepped out of the car in heels way too high for a driveway confrontation, like she was dressing for a performance. Nathan followed behind, looking like he wasn't sure if he was there to back her up or hold her back. And the second I opened the door, she started. No greeting, no warmth, just, "You're manipulating this family through legal threats." Her voice was sharp, like she'd practiced it in the mirror before coming over. I stood in the doorway, didn't move, didn't. "Invite them in." Let her words hang in the air like smoke. Then she added, "You're punishing us for setting boundaries." And that's when I saw it. That smug little tilt of her chin, like she still believed she had the moral high ground, even after skipping Gerald's funeral, even after using Nathan to drain our money, even after playing victim in a story she had written. I didn't respond. I just stepped aside, barely enough for them to come in. Not because I wanted them there, but because I knew Ava was upstairs. Half listening, like kids always do. And something in me needed her to hear this. Not to hurt her, but to protect her, to let her see for herself. Megan strutted into the living room, trailing her perfume like a second weapon. Nathan sat quietly on the edge of the couch, eyes glued to the floor, and Megan took the lead, like always. "We talked to a lawyer," she said, crossing her arms. "And if this will isn't revised, we may have grounds to question your capacity." That's when I finally spoke. Calm, steady. "Are you threatening to declare me mentally unfit?" She shrugged. "I'm just saying. It's not unheard of. Grief does strange things to people." And I saw Nathan flinch. Was it guilt? Shame? Even he didn't know. Then I heard it, the soft creak of the floor upstairs. Ava had shifted her weight, still listening, every word etching itself into her memory. I turned to Nathan. "Do you agree with her?" He didn't say a word, just swallowed hard and looked away. That silence, it told me everything. He wouldn't stop her. He wouldn't defend me. He wouldn't even protect his father's memory, not if it meant making things uncomfortable in his house. And Megan took that silence like fuel. She stepped forward, voice rising. "You're tearing this family apart over money." I laughed. Just once. Dry, hollow. The kind of laugh that only comes when something has gone so far beyond absurd it lands in tragedy. "I'm tearing it apart," I said. "Gerald died alone. His own son didn't show up. And you're worried about the inheritance?" That's when Ava appeared, halfway down the stairs. She didn't say a word, just stood there, wide-eyed but steady. Megan turned around, startled to see her. But Ava didn't speak. She looked at her father, then at me. Then turned and walked back upstairs, slow, deliberate. The weight of that moment filled the room like a storm cloud. Megan felt it too. I saw her face falter for the first time. "She doesn't understand," Megan said weakly. "She understands." "More than you think," I answered. Then I walked to the door, opened it, held it wide. "We're done here." Nathan stood without saying a word, walked out ahead of her, and Megan, she paused, just for a second. Like maybe she'd throw one more dart, but she didn't. She followed, her heels clicking hard against the tile. I shut the door before she even reached the porch. 3 weeks passed. Then I found it. A small envelope in the mailbox. No return address. Just my name, written in Ava's careful, 12-year-old handwriting. My heart dropped. I already knew. This wasn't a birthday card. This wasn't a drawing. This was something else, something serious. Inside, a small black flash drive, no note, no explanation. I plugged it into my laptop with shaking hands. Folders appeared, each one labeled by date, each one packed with files that made my stomach turn, recordings of phone calls. There were screenshots of text messages, even a few videos, shaky and filmed from behind her bedroom door. But you could hear everything, every single word Megan and Nathan had said, thinking no one else would ever find out. In one video, Megan was yelling. Her voice was sharp and quick. "She's manipulating everyone with that will," she snapped. "And if Ava takes her side, I swear to God, Nathan, we'll pull her out of that school and homeschool her until she gets her." Head on straight. Then came Nathan's voice, softer but somehow colder. "Just let Mom play her little game. It's not like we need the money right now, and if Ava behaves, she can still help us later." I just sat there, frozen. That was my son, talking. About my will like it was some kind of game. Like I wasn't even a real person, just a dying piece in some money strategy. It broke something inside me. But the worst part? A video named Kitchen Night. You see Megan by the sink whispering into her phone. If we push just a little harder, she'll crack. We'll say she's confused, maybe get the lawyer to question her mental state. And then boom, the trust. Gets flagged. And right before the video ended, I heard Ava's breath catch. That moment shattered me. I didn't know what hurt more, Megan's cold-hearted plan, or realizing that my granddaughter had been trying to protect me while I was trying to protect her. At the very bottom of all those files was a short text document, just a few lines, but they hit me like a punch in the gut. "Grandma, I didn't know who else to tell. I hear things when they think I'm asleep. I know they're lying. I believe you. I'm saving this in case you ever need help." I stared at those words for a long time, longer than anything I'd read since Gerald's letter. And right then, I understood. This whole mess wasn't just about money or wills or revenge. It was about Ava, a little girl standing alone in a house where telling the truth felt dangerous, quietly recording everything to protect the only adult who hadn't let her down. I made 2 copies of that drive, one for Alan, one locked in my safe, and I wrote a new letter to Ava, sealed and dated, so she'd have it if anything ever happened. To me before she turned 18, because I needed her to know I believed her. I trusted her. And if she ever had to stand up in front of a judge or a counselor or anyone else who doubted her, she'd have proof that she saw everything and never looked away. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in Gerald's old chair, holding that tiny flash drive like it was both a time bomb and a treasure. And I made myself a promise, not just to protect Ava's inheritance, but to protect her voice. Because in our family, she was the first one brave enough to use it. The mediation was held downtown, in one of those quiet beige offices with bottled water and polite chairs. The kind of place that tries to feel calm, even though everyone inside is preparing for battle. When Nathan and Megan walked in, I didn't say a word. Megan was dressed like she was auditioning for a courtroom drama, and Nathan looked like he'd aged 10 years in just a month. I didn't greet them. I didn't smile. I just sat beside Alan with a folder in front of me, filled with the flash. Drive, bank records, Gerald's letter, and Nathan's own words on tape. The mediator introduced herself, speaking in that soft, neutral way they're trained to. She asked why we were there. Megan jumped right in, acting like she was the victim, saying, I was too emotional, too unstable, maybe even losing my mind. She had it all rehearsed, like a play she'd practiced. And Nathan? He sat there saying nothing, eyes flicking away every time I looked at him. Then it was my turn. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get upset. I simply slid the folder across the table and said, "This is why." The mediator opened it, flipping through everything, dates, transactions, notes, audio recordings. Then she came to Ava's flash drive. It had one simple label, evidence. And right there, I felt it. The room shifted. The lie Megan had been building started to crumble. The mediator looked right at her and asked, "Were you aware that your daughter recorded statements about trying to change a legal trust through manipulation?" Megan's face went pale. "She's 12. She doesn't understand what she heard," she stammered. But it was too late. The truth was out. The recordings existed. The damage was done. The mediator turned to Nathan and asked if he had anything to say. He didn't. He just rubbed his hands together like he could somehow wipe away the guilt. And all I said was, "She tried to warn you." That's when Megan completely lost it. Not with words trying to defend herself, but with pure anger. She slammed her hand on the table and yelled, "This is all because you couldn't handle your husband dying. Now you're trying to punish us because you're lonely." The mediator stayed calm and asked Megan to step outside for a moment to cool down. Megan stormed off, her heels clicking down the hallway, leaving Nathan behind. For the first time since Gerald's funeral, Nathan finally looked at me and spoke. His voice was small and tired. "I didn't know it had gotten this bad." I looked at him and said, "You didn't want to know." He nodded slowly, staring at the floor. "I just wanted peace." I told him, "You don't get peace from staying quiet. You get peace from standing up when it really matters." When the mediator came back, she told us the trust couldn't be challenged. It was legally solid, fair, and backed up by loads of proof. Ava's recording showed there was too much pressure in the house, and that counted as real evidence. Megan never came back to hear the decision. Nathan left soon after, quietly, without shaking hands or looking back. I stayed a moment longer, gathering my things, feeling something strange inside. Not triumph or relief, but a calm kind of sadness. It was the kind of sadness that comes when the fight is over. Not because you won, but because the truth made it impossible for anyone to pretend anymore. Ava turned 18 last Friday. The day didn't come with balloons or cake, just a quiet knock on my door around noon. Her eyes were wide but steady as she stepped in. She handed me the letter I'd written, her 5 years ago, still sealed and unopened, and said, "I wanted to read it with you." I didn't say anything, just nodded. She carefully opened the envelope like it might fall apart and unfolded the 6 pages I had poured my heart into back when everything felt like it was falling apart. She read quietly for a few minutes, her face changing from serious to tearful. Then she asked, "Is all of this still true?" I said, "Every single word." She hugged me tighter than ever before and whispered, "Thank you for telling me the truth when no one else would." In that hug, I felt every bit of pain and hope wrapped together. Later, we sat down in Gerald's old chair. She pulled out her phone and showed me a short video, her standing in front of a judge, saying clearly, "I'd like to change my middle name to Coraline, after my grandmother." That's when I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. My chest felt like it was breaking open at the sound of her taking back her own story, choosing a part of our family that didn't hurt her, didn't lie to her, and didn't treat her like a pawn. That afternoon, we went to her graduation. When she walked across the stage, they called out her full new name, Ava Coraline Whitfield. She looked right at me and smiled. In her face, I saw not just pride, but the kind of calm and strength Gerald had when he made tough decisions no one else understood until much later. Nathan was there too, sitting all alone in the back row. His eyes were red, his suit wrinkled. He clapped, but it felt like out of duty, not happiness. He didn't come over to me or Ava, not because anyone stopped him, but because I think he finally understood what it means to be cut off in ways deeper than just money. After the ceremony, Ava ran to me and hugged me again. She whispered that she picked me to live with next semester because her roommate had backed out. I laughed through my tears, knowing I'd get another year filled with her stories, her music playing in the background, and her toothbrush quietly sitting in my bathroom, a small win against everything Megan tried to control. That day, we never even mentioned Megan. She had faded away like a forgotten subplot, her silence louder than any apology she never gave. That night, when I tucked Ava into her old childhood room, I left the door cracked open, just like I used to. She looked up and said, "You gave me a life I didn't even know I needed." I kissed her forehead and said, "You chose it, sweetheart. I just cleared the path." As I walked down the hallway to my own room, passing Gerald's photo on the wall, I touched the frame gently and whispered, "She's going to be okay, love. We're going to be okay." And for the first time in years, I truly believed it.